Chapter 7, Video 3. Now we're going to talk about a sinus arrhythmia. The key word here is sinus. We know it originates in the sinus node. However, with that being said, we have some differences here. One of the main differences is an arrhythmia is an irregular rhythm. So it's originating in the sinus node, but it's irregular, okay? The pattern can often be seen as cyclic. It usually corresponds with breathing. Again, the QRS complex can be positive, negative, or isoelectric. It really depends on which lead that you're monitoring. And then here is your criteria. It's irregular in a regular pattern, okay? The longest RR cycle exceeds the shortest by greater than or equal to 0.16 seconds by 4 or more little blocks, okay? So the longest RR cycle exceeds, so it goes past the shortest by greater than or equal to 0.16 seconds, which is 4 or more little blocks. So the rate varies. It can vary with respiratory pattern. It's an irregular rhythm. Our P waves are still upright and matching. They're married to the QRS. Our PR interval here is the same, 0.12 to 0.20. The QRS is 0.12. It's less than 0.12. And again, the causes can be heart disease, breathing pattern, and it can be very common during sleep. There's usually no adverse side effects, and there's usually no treatment. So this would be a sinus arrhythmia. So basically everything's here, everything looks good. The only thing that we're seeing is the difference in the RR intervals, which tells us that it's irregular. Now we're going to talk about sinus arrest. Sinus arrest always ends with an escape beat. Remember, the escape beat is a life-saving beat. It is life-saving. Something happens, the sinus nodes quit firing, one of the lower pacemakers decide that it's going to kick in and take over, okay? The pause that occurs when the regularly firing SA node suddenly stops firing. You may see one or more PQRST sequences, but one or more will also be missing. An escape beat from the lower pacemaker comes in, it kicks in, and it takes over, and it makes the heart beat. You can have positive, negative, or isoelectric QRS complexes. Again, it depends on which lead. Here is the criteria. It can happen at any rate. It is regular, but it's interrupted by a pause. Pause is not multiple of RR intervals, okay? The PR intervals here are 0.12 to 0.20. And the QRS is less than 0.12 seconds on sinus beats. It may be greater if the escape beat fires in. So if we have an escape beat that comes in from a lower pacemaker, you may see a wider QRS because that's telling you that the ventricle's fired for that escape beat. P waves are normal before the pause. They may be different after. There's different causes, which is ischemia, hypoxia, or digitalis toxicity. A result could be decreased cardiac output. Treatment is atropine, oxygen if they're having symptoms, and we may hold these bradycardic-induced medications. So this would be sinus arrest. We're trucking along, PQRST, PQRST, PQRST. Ooh, we got silent. Nothing happened in the SA node. Nothing happened in the SA node. Now we have this escape beat because the lower pacemaker, the ventricles decide that it's going to fire and produce a beat to save your life. And then the SA node resumes here. When we talk about the length exceeding the RR intervals, we have what we mean by that I said earlier is two of these sections. We have our RR interval. We have two or more sections without any activity that's the same length as this RR interval. If that doesn't make sense, please get with me and I'll explain that to you. The sinus block is also called a sinus exit block. It can occur at any rate. It's irregular but interrupted by a pause. We have a pause that is a multiple of RR intervals. So that's what we mean by that, a multiple of RR intervals. So we count this RR interval. We have more than one space here with this pause. So with the sinus block, we have that multiple of RR intervals. QRSs again can be positive, negative, isoelectric. Really depends on the lead being monitored. And the sinus block is a pause that occurs when the sinus node impulse is not conducted out of the sinus node itself. It can happen at any rate. QRS is less than 0.12 seconds, and causes can be medications, hypoxia, and vagal stimulation. Guys, if you have any questions, please let me know. There are practice strips for you to do throughout these PowerPoints. My suggestion is to do these practice slides and then check yourself in the back of the book. And then when you find yourself with questions, please let me know and I'll work with you. But I do encourage you to do these practice strips, and I encourage you to go through the 5 questions that we went over in chapter 5 or chapter 6. Start with those 5 questions and then start applying the criteria that we've learned in the previous chapters. If you have any questions, please let me know.